Hey guys, Veronica here. So today I'd like to talk to you about my mushroom patch. Now, if you've been following me on Facebook or Instagram or any of the social media, you'll know that I've been nerding out about this for like weeks now, if not months. And I've always had a fascination with mushrooms. Like, ever since I was a little kid, when they'd pop up in the yard, I would take pictures and kind of pull them apart and try and learn about what I was seeing, because it seemed like such a magical thing. And a couple of years ago, I started getting spent spawn bags for oyster mushrooms from the farmer's market, because the guy who ran the booth there told me that these mushrooms, if I broke up the spawn and I mixed it into my compost, it would help break down my compost pile and make the nutrients a little more available to my plants, and just kind of help break up the soil that we had there, which was really clay, back at my old house. And so then I made friends with a mushroom grower, and I started picking up these Shiitake blocks a couple of years ago from Far West Fungi, my friend Kyle there. And they were really cool because it was something that I could grow in winter, and it would break down over the course of, the rain or water that it was getting. And then I could break those blocks up and use them kind of as a mulch in my garden. So the last time I was there, last winter, like fast forward to now, we decided that we were going to get a bunch of blocks to put in the garden again, because it was really nice having fresh mushrooms all winter. And I noticed this box of mushrooms called wine caps, which I had done a little research on, but I'd never taken the plunge. They're called wine caps, they're called garden giant. If you're a mushroom enthusiast, you would know them to be in the Stropharia family. And so I took this box of wine cap mycelium. It was just like in a cardboard box with, sawdust and stuff in the bag. And I decided to build this bed 4 months ago. And here we are 4 months later with this experiment that I am going to be expanding, because I'm just so in love with this whole process. And I'm going to break down as far as why I think that these mushrooms deserve a spot in your garden if you were gardening outside. So, the first thing I did when I set this up, you're basically setting it up like it's a back to Eden garden. So if you know anything about back to Eden gardening, if you've done that before, it's kind of like lasagna gardening. And so what you do is you put down your layers of newspaper or cardboard. Definitely cardboard. Newspaper is not so important. So you put down a layer to kind of smother the weeds and create a flat surface, especially if you have rocky clay soil. Then you can either put down a layer of compost, which I generally do because I have it to work with. If you're doing the Back to Eden garden, you're definitely putting down a layer of compost. It's like maybe 3 or 4 inches. And on top of that, you put down a layer of mulch that's 4 to 6 inches. So where I veer off course with that gardening method is I then mix in this mycelium, the Stropharia mycelium, into that layer of mulch. And I put a little more mulch on top. And then I put some watering spinners, some irrigation spinners on it, just to kind of get everything going so that my mycelium didn't, kick the bucket and die before the rains come, which will not be for a few more months. So since I figured everything was on irrigation, we try that out. And yesterday, where did I put them? So yesterday I picked these. And so this is the fruiting body of this mycelium. Basically, these are indicators that my mushroom bed, this like compost and bark mixture, is starting to run its course. It's starting to run out of food. And what the mushroom does is it sends up these fruits. You'll see them like throughout the garden here. It starts to send up these fruit. And these fruit, underneath you'll see there's gills. Let's see if you can actually see that. Yeah. So there's gills underneath the mushroom. And what happens next is, it's just crazy. Almost like lettuce or something going to seed, but totally different concept. It'll send out spores, which are its tiny little, practically microscopic seeds. Sometimes you can see clouds of them, but I digress. So it'll send out spores, and then the spores go and find another place to land and start to colonize and break down stuff there. They're looking for more food. So if the mushroom runs out of food here, it's going to start fruiting or it's getting close to running out of food, it'll start fruiting, and then the spores will go to another part of the garden and start to colonize until they run out of food and start fruiting. And hopefully at the end of all of that, you get some really epic soil. So these guys are great. Part of the reason that I'm like so in love with them is that I feel like this is the missing link in a lot of gardens, especially mine. So soil does not rapidly decompose here because we're in a dry climate. When you're working with a compost pile, you're working with mulch or any sort of dead and decaying matter, you need another organism to help break that down, because in wetter places, places that get lots of rain, places that are a little more tropical, you're going to have the aid of the water breaking all of that stuff down. But in a dry place, like, you're just kind of waiting for the rain and it's slowly turning into dust, and you're losing a lot of the nutrients that are trapped in those plants and the decaying matter because it kind of crumbles into nothing and blows away. So we're going to mitigate that process by starting to create really just nice mushroom beds, and with the hopes that we can eventually mulch around a lot of the gardens, get a lot deeper mulch, as in like you would see in a back to Eden method or something like that, and see if that doesn't help us retain water, prevent the evaporation on the topsoil when we water, if it also doesn't help break down the nutrients that are in the compost, in the mulch, even in our clay and like heavier soil, to make those more available to the plants. Because what happens here, and I'll show you, I'll get a little chunk. Oh, that's a good chunk. So this is the Mycelium Network of this mushroom. And I love this corner of the garden because it smells like the forest floor. Like, it's just beautiful. It kind of looks like, it reminds me of the white stuff that's between the peel and the fruit of an orange. And so this is like fully colonized bark mulch. This is oak mulch. And they really like growing on the oak mulch. So this will continue to break down, and eventually this will become just like this really nice, friable, loamy soil because it has all of this broken down mulch. Once this network has been created, I don't know all of the connecting points at this point, but it seems like there's something in it, aside from the moisture, that is attracting all of these insects that are normally burrowing and tunneling throughout my garden, eating holes in my plants, and it's attracting them to here and saying, this is what you want to eat, just help break this down. So I'm finding just all of my pill bugs, tons of worms, and some earwigs, and there's all kinds of these decomposer bugs that aren't supposed to eat live stuff, and everyone who lives in a dry area is like, oh no, they definitely eat live stuff. Well, I don't know that they necessarily want to eat live stuff. It's just that sometimes that's the only good option available, and I think that they need moisture in order to break down their food. So if all the options are, dry stuff with no moisture or live stuff with some moisture, well, they're going to go after the live stuff then. So by creating a space like this, I think that you help to redirect where those insects are going to be feasting. So this patch just started fruiting. I think it's going to continue fruiting until it starts to get cold, because these guys like, some mid-range weather. So now that we're going to be dropping back down into the 90s in the next couple of days/weeks, and we'll go up and down until, I don't know, like October. But we should see, some more nice looking ones like this instead of everything that's like busted and blown out. But I can pull, let's see, I'll pull one of these guys so you can see it like fresh out, that this network, so this is one that I just pulled from the garden. It doesn't want to focus. But there we go. So there's like this network that connects it, and that there wasn't soil near it. It's starting to break down all of the compost and stuff, and create this like really amazing water retaining, dark and loamy soil. I'm obsessed with soil building. So this is really like the next level as far as that. But it honestly, it wasn't a difficult process. Like, there's a little bit of manpower involved as far as moving, you know, your mulch and your compost and getting a strain of, you know, mycelium for these mushrooms. But other than that, it's just keeping it kind of irrigated. So if you have a spot, especially this winter, where you're growing, you know, cabbages or collards, it really does well in symbiosis with brassicas. As you can see, this is one of my perpetual kales. I think it's called cosmic kale, which is silly, but I love it. Underneath, I'll show you in a close-up, like, there's just little mushrooms popping up everywhere. And the mycelial network of these mushrooms actually helps to deliver nutrients to the roots of the brassicas. It doesn't, like, necessarily just bring them all in, but it kind of creates this, like, my understanding is that it creates this almost network that helps to deliver it on, like, an information superhighway, like the internet that you're watching this on. So that's all for these mushrooms. I'm sure you have questions. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, because I'm planning on going up and getting more shiitake blocks and more of this Stropharia, and we can ask them questions when I'm there. So yeah, leave any comments and questions in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if you like seeing this sort of content, and follow me on Instagram at FlavorKit, where there's always cooking and gardening and silly baby goats and dogs and stuff. So until next time, happy gardening.